All right, good afternoon and welcome to the Public Safety and Administration Subcommittee of the Appropriations Committee's budget hearing today. We have 5 agencies before us. We'll go ahead and start with the Office of the Public Defender, and I would invite the budget analysts for the Office of the Public Defender, Mr. Scott Benson, to offer the DLS analysis, followed by the Public Defender and her team. Mr. Benson.
All right. Good afternoon, Mr. Chair. My name is Scott Benson, and today I'll be presenting the operating analysis for the Office of the Public Defender, or OPD. OPD provides counsel and related services to indigent persons through 12 district operations, 4 divisions, and 2 specialized units. The 4 divisions that support the office are General Administration, District Operations, Appellate and Inmate Services, and Involuntary Institutionalization Services. Now, as you can see on page 1 in the operating budget summary, the fiscal 2027 budget decreases by $3.3 million, or 1.8%, to $174.3 million. It's important to note that the fiscal 2027 allowance includes 9 deficiency appropriations that provide a total of $16.3 million in general funds. $5.8 million is to adjust fiscal 2026 costs, and the remaining is to cover fiscal 2025 expenditures. 4 deficiency appropriations cover these shortfalls for the following uses: $8.5 million for panel attorneys, about $644,000 for contractual transcription services, about $557,000 for software licenses such as Microsoft and eDefender, about $373,000 for medical service support, about $115,000 for information technology related contracts, and about $294,000 for various operational expenses. Excluding the $10.5 million in deficiency appropriations to cover the fiscal 2025 shortfalls, the fiscal 2027 allowance increases by $7.2 million, or 4.3%, compared to the fiscal 2026 working appropriation. You can see in Exhibit 1 on page 3 that 82%, or $144 million, of the fiscal 2027 allowance is for district operations. In Exhibit 2 on page 4, you can see that 80% of the fiscal 2027 allowance, or $139.4 million, is for personnel-related expenses. As you can see in Exhibit 3 on page 5, the largest increases in the fiscal 2027 budget include personnel-related expenditures. Outside of personnel-related expenditures, there's a $1.2 million increase for panel attorney hourly rate adjustments. Additionally, the fiscal 2026 working appropriation does include $65,000 in general funds for an unidentified contract that OPD could not explain. As you see in the personnel data on page 7, OPD had 104.5 vacancies as of December 31st, 2025. Job offers have been accepted for 12 of these vacant positions with a start date between January 7th and February 18th. As you can see in Exhibit 5 on page 9, OPD has handled a fairly static caseload over the most recent 5 fiscal years. Excluding cases that were handled by panel attorneys, in each year between fiscal 2021 and 2025, the agency handled between 122,351 and 127,660 total cases each year, which is well below the caseloads in calendar 2019, which totaled 204,247 cases. Despite this decrease in cases since calendar 2019, OPD efficiency has not improved due to the growing complexity of cases and the time cases require. OPD should discuss actions that are being taken to increase efficiency of managing more complex caseloads with current resources and monitor the hours spent on each case. As you can see in Exhibit 6 on page 11, OPD is understaffed for its current workload by about 1,025 attorneys, with circuit court felonies being the worst, with an estimated 792 additional attorneys required to meet standards. Current workloads are unsustainable for many attorneys, as the increasing complexity of cases has meant fewer but longer cases for attorneys to manage. This issue has contributed to low employee morale, high turnover, and extensive reliance on panel attorneys, along with other consequences. Panel attorneys are attorneys paid by OPD to provide representation to clients when OPD attorneys are unable to do so. As you can see in Exhibit 7 on page 12, panel attorney use decreased from 12,193 cases in fiscal 2024 to 10,534 cases in fiscal 2025. OPD has received deficiency appropriations in 3 consecutive years to cover prior year expenses, specifically for panel attorneys. You can see in Exhibit 8 on page 13, the fiscal 2023 actual costs were $11.4 million, but required an additional $1.8 million. The fiscal 2024 actual costs were $12.1 million and required a $1.3 million deficiency. The deficiency to cover the shortfall for panel attorneys has grown considerably in fiscal 2025. It has increased to $8.5 million, while the fiscal 2025 working appropriation contained $12.5 million for panel attorneys. However, OPD indicated that it used funds for other expenses to balance its budget. OPD should specify how the funding originally budgeted for panel attorney expenses in fiscal 2025 was used and discuss the reason for realigning those funds for other purposes. The fiscal 2026 deficiency appropriation does not include additional funds to adjust the fiscal 2026 working appropriation for panel attorney expenses from $11.1 million, despite actual spending exceeding $12 million each year since fiscal 2023. Additionally, the fiscal 2027 allowance of $12.2 million remains lower than the fiscal 2025 actual expenditures totaling $13.3 million. The $1.2 million increase for panel attorneys in the fiscal 2027 allowance is to increase the hourly rate by $5 an hour from $60 an hour or $75 in cases with possible life sentences. OPD should discuss the reason for the lower funding in fiscal 2026 and 2027 for this purpose compared to recent actual experience, how it would cover any shortfalls in the spending, and how it would adjust hourly rates if costs of current services outpace the budgeted amounts. Now, on page 15, you can see the recommended actions, and the Department of Legislative Services recommends increasing the budgeted turnover rate to 6.41%, adding language restricting the use of funds in the deficiency appropriation and the fiscal 2027 allowance for panel attorneys to be used only for that purpose, to add committee narrative requesting reports from OPD on panel attorney caseloads and expenditures, and to reduce the deficiency appropriation by $65,000 in general funds. Now, that concludes my presentation. I can take your questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Benson, for that thorough analysis. Any questions from the committee for the DLS analysts? All right, seeing none, welcome to our public defender, Natasha Dartigue, and her team. Take it away, Madam Public Defender.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. I am Natasha Dartigue, Maryland Public Defender. Thank you for the opportunity to discuss FY27 budget for the Office of the Public Defender and to respond to the Department of Legislative Services FY27 budget analysis. We recognize and thank Scott Benson, OPD's DLS analyst, for his expertise and thorough, insightful analysis. So let me start by saying this year, I would like to frame our situation through a metaphor. And the metaphor I will use is the reality show Survivor. Now, if you've watched the show, you know the premise. Contestants are placed on an island with almost no supplies. They must build shelter with whatever they can find, forage for food, complete increasingly difficult challenges with limited tools and even less rest. The ones who survive do so through resilience, teamwork, and creativity, not because they have what they need. This is what this year has felt like at OPD. We're on the island. We've been surviving through grit and creativity, not because we have what we need. So today, I want to explain what survival mode looks like and ask for the tools to move from surviving to stabilizing. The numbers tell a stark story. In FY25, we handled 116,330 new cases, up from 110,400 the year before. We represent almost 80% of all individuals charged in criminal cases in Maryland. That's approximately 8 out of every 10 people facing criminal charges. Our juvenile caseload surged 20% in the last year, from 3,736 cases in FY24 to 4,497 cases in FY25. That's 761 more children we need to represent every year. We've received 0 additional resources for this surge. Here's our staffing reality. We have 625 attorneys in filled positions. We have 338 core staff. That includes investigators, paralegals, social workers, and administrative personnel. We are operating with a 10% vacancy rate. That's 54 vacant attorney positions, 48 vacant core staff positions. Now, the National Public Defense Workload Study that was conducted by the RAND Corporation and the American Bar Association analyzed what we actually need. They're finding OPD needs 2.5 to 3 times our current number of attorneys. That's 1,560 to 1,875 lawyers just for the adult criminal trial work. The national study did not include juvenile representation, appellate work, mental health cases, parental defense, or post-conviction matters. So that's also part of what we do. The reality is that you cannot make 625 lawyers do the work that requires 1,875 people, no matter how efficiently they work. We've tried every efficiency measure, streamlined processes. We've built every shelter we can with sticks, but there are no more survival tactics left. We need actual resources. Now let me explain what our crisis looks like beyond headcount. In 2005, when the caseload standards we originally were using were created, a criminal case consisted of paper documents in a folder. You had police reports, written documents, photographs, so an attorney could review an entire file in an afternoon. The 2000 standards said that you'd spend about 14 hours on the case. We fast forward to 2026. Today, a single felony case can include 50 or more hours of body cam, 10,000 text messages extracted from cell phones, complete social media histories, GPS location data, cell tower records, ring door camera video, dashboard camera footage, and surveillance from multiple sources. One murder case reviewed in Harford County had 200 hours of surveillance footage, thousands of text messages, and cell tower records requiring expert analysis. The 2005 standard still says 14 hours. The actual time needed to review this digital evidence is about 40 to 250 plus hours, and that is before you even start legal research, before you draft a single motion, before you do any trial preparation. We are using standards designed for paper files to handle terabytes of digital data. We're asking attorneys to build a satellite using stone tools. This is where technology becomes essential. Right now, we have 81 licenses for a transcription platform called Justice Tech, serving 625 attorneys. That's 13% coverage. We have 55 attorneys in a pilot program for digital evidence management. That's 8.8% coverage. Less than 1 in 10 of our lawyers have access to the tools that would let them search video footage, transcribe interviews, and analyze digital evidence efficiently and easily. We are rationing our tools, creating a wait list. And some get the technology support and some don't. We need $2.2 million annually to provide the tools to all 625 lawyers. Independent analysis shows that this saves each attorney at least 60 to 75 minutes per day. That's a 5-to-1 return on investment over 10 years. It unlocks $101 to $118 million in labor value. The alternative would be to hire 122 additional lawyers to manually process all this digital evidence at a cost of $250 million over 10 years. $2.2 million annually versus $250 million over a decade. Investing in OPD technology is fiscally responsible. We also face two critical funding crises: unfunded mandates and the panel attorney crisis. First, unfunded mandates. We are required by law to provide assisted outpatient treatment representation. This is specialized mental health work. It requires extensive client assessments, psychiatric record review, coordination with treatment providers, and multiple hearings. Funding we have received for this mandate, 0 in FY26, 0 in FY27, $0 in any future year. We're providing specialized mental health representation for free while already being critically understaffed. Second, our panel attorney system is in crisis. This rope represents our panel system. We have conflicts of interest or co-defendant cases. We're constitutionally required to retain private counsel. In FY25, we spent $12.3 million on these constitutional mandated cases. Then, challenges of being on the island, Survivor Island, forced us to reduce panel attorney funding by $1.6 million, fraying the rope that was once our strong support. Panel attorneys are now declining cases because hourly rates have not kept up with inflation or the increased complexity of modern cases. When panel attorneys decline, the cases are not moving forward. That causes a severe bottleneck in the resolution, not only for our clients, but also victims. The bottom line is that the tribe is shrinking when we need it most. So what are we asking for? We have 5 targeted requests, 5 key ways to stabilize OPD. Key 1, stabilize staffing by allowing OPD to fill critical vacancies with competitive compensation. We can hire. We hired 208 people in FY24. We need the funding and salaries competitive enough to retain experienced attorneys and core staff. The ability to build towards workload standards with a phased, realistic approach is essential. We've contracted with the RAND Corporation for a Maryland-specific data report that is expected to come out the summer of 2026. We are asking for a clear path forward to be able to put things in place. Key 2, fund our digital evidence technology at $2.2 million annually. I explained the return on investment as an alternative to $250 million in hiring costs. Key 3, support panel attorney recruitment with fair compensation. This is a constitutionally mandated spending. Key 4, address the unfunded AOT mandate with dedicated resources. You cannot require specialized mental health representation and fund it at $0. Key 5, achieve paid parity with the Office of the Attorney General's staff. OPD staff do comparative work and should receive comparative pay. As an example, I'll highlight right now, we are training attorneys who leave for the AG's office because of salary differentials. OPD starting salary for an experienced attorney is $107,687. The AG for the same individual is $114,875. That is $7,000 higher starting salary at the AG's office. These 5 key requests are targeted, achievable, and represent the minimum tools needed to fulfill our mandate. Let me close with this. When our defense is understaffed, the entire justice system suffers. Courts backlog, victims wait, cases delay, trust erodes. Stable defense equals stable justice. Prosecutors, courts, victims, clients, everyone depends on a functioning public defense system. In Survivor, you can make it through every challenge with grit. Contestants improvise, they adapt, they survive on resilience. But you cannot build a sustainable future without tools. You cannot serve justice on willpower alone. We have survived on resilience long enough. OPD staff show up every day handling impossible workloads because they believe in justice. Willpower cannot replace the resources that are needed. So please, give us the tools so that we may continue doing the important work that Maryland depends on. Thank you, and I welcome your questions.
All right, thank you, Madam Public Defender. Questions from the committee, Vice Chair Ivey.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Madam Public Defender, for being here and for the work that you all do, really thankless work over the years that we've been trying to help you with. I appreciate, first and foremost, that you came with these 5 requests because it's important for us to know what specific things you're asking for. I just had a couple questions. You said for your first point about allowing vacancies to be filled with competitive salaries. I wanted to know if you could give us like a dollar amount on what that would look like annually, because you gave us the dollar amounts, the $2.2 million for the software upgrades, which, you know, again, I appreciate the very straightforward dollar amount you gave us. But if really for the 5 of these suggestions or requests, if you could put a dollar amount next to them, it just makes our job a lot easier when we're advocating for you. Thank you.
I would ask to supplement and provide a written, I don't want to speculate as to what the actual dollar amount would, but I would defer to my deputy. And I apologize, seated with me is, to my right, is Deputy Keith Lottridge and Chief Financial Officer Thaddeus Hubbard to my left.
So I can't give you the exact number, but I can give you, again, good afternoon, I'm Keith Lottridge, I'm the Deputy Public Defender. The difference is essentially a 1-grade difference in our categories for attorneys. So when the example was given, our attorney at that level was a grade 22. The Attorney General's office lists that attorney at a grade 23, which is a 1-grade difference. It's not exactly perfect, but about a 6% difference per grade. So if you look at our annual salary costs, it would be about a 6% difference, but we will follow up with an exact number.
Yeah, and my apologies, I'm not looking for a specific response today. I know you all have done thorough work to put this presentation together for us, but as these next weeks and months go by, we just need firm numbers to be able to point to as we're having these discussions.
We will absolutely make sure that's done.
And thank you very much. And Mr. Chair, if you don't mind, just one last point I'd like to make. I see the vacancy rate, it's 10%. I know why you're struggling to fill these positions. And so I just wanted to speak to that as well, if you want to speak to the vacancy rate. But something that I'm taking away personally is you need these other pillars kind of fixed before people are excited to come and sign up to work in the OPD's office. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, any other questions from committee members? All right, seeing none. Madam Public Defender, I just wanted to touch on one point in your testimony. You had mentioned unfunded mandates a good bit of time. For the benefit of this committee, can you share with us like specific examples of, you know, how your agency, I guess, deals with this? You know, what are some of the obligations? You know, is it something that, you know, requires, you know, your agency to do more? Can you give us like a specific example of the unfunded mandates that you had mentioned in your testimony?
Thank you. Thank you for the questions. One of the examples that was given was in terms of the assisted outpatient treatment, and I will defer to my deputy to fully answer the question.
So about a year and a half ago, a bill was passed by the House and the Senate, which outlined assisted outpatient treatment, which is a program whereby someone with mental health problems can be ordered by a court to take medication, even though they are competent under the law and not dangerous. Part of that bill was that the Office of the Public Defender would represent those individuals. We were given no money in that appropriation, in that bill at all, on that date or moving forward. So we have no funds. But what that means for us internally, other than the fact that we have no funds and no staff provided, is that we are now getting potentially thousands of new clients in a year. Our mental health division is about 15 attorneys. They represent all of the clients in mental health institutions and hospitals across the state. Quite frankly, they are so understaffed that it is embarrassing for our office. To add thousands of clients to that particular division is an impossibility. These cases are under the civil nature. If any of you are practicing attorneys, that means there's depositions, all kinds of discovery requests, motions for every single one of these clients. And these are clients who are not incarcerated, not in hospitals, but who are on the street. Therefore, we will have to track them down and be representing people who are undergoing potentially difficult situations in their life, preparing for very long civil trials. Again, this is potentially thousands of cases a year put upon an agency which has no extra staff at all. And that is our current prime example. There are others, but that's probably our best one for this particular question. And I thank you for the question. Did that answer your question, sir?
It does. I appreciate that. I do have a follow-up for Madam Public Defender. So I'm looking at the DLS report. Your agency's budget decreases by $3.3 million. Can you help me understand, one, when was the last time OPD was audited? What was found? How are you managing the resources of your agency? I guess from what it sounds like based on your testimony, like limited resources of your agency to ensure like OPD is doing the work that it is charged to do.
Thank you again for that question as well. Our most recent audit, and I will have my CEO speak as to the specific date, was within the last 6 months, and it was returned as a clean opinion, meaning that they found no deficiencies. We are extremely proud of that report. The auditors also acknowledged that previous indications that had been made, we had followed through, identified issues, and were able to return again with a clean report. And they made special note about our responsiveness, that this is not a routine outcome that they see. So I do want to direct the committee to that particular point, because it speaks to our ability to be fiscally responsible. We have no unresolved recommendations from prior years, and the clean audit speaks to our ability to use our resources effectively, manage them responsibly, and it greatly impacts the ability to do our work. I'll ask my CFO, Mr. Hubbard, to elaborate on that.
Yes, the audit period was for July 1st, 2020 through January 15th, 2025. And the audit report was issued in May 2025. There were no findings. There were no repeat findings, which is something we're very proud of. As Madam Public Defender said, it speaks to the ability of my staff and the culture of the Public Defender, that we take our resources seriously, and we respect the process. And we're just very, very proud of this audit.
All right, well, thank you for that. And then my last question, but I want to make sure no other committee questions. Good. You'd mentioned in your testimony, Madam Public Defender, about the pilot project that you all have around rolling out a software system. I believe it's around evidence. And I'm curious, because a lot of the judiciary is also rolling out these softwares to do various things. I'll ask you the way I've asked them, like what's going to get us from the point of a pilot to like real deployment, like deployment of this software program that you mentioned in your testimony that is needed for, what is it, evidence, digital evidence?
Yes, it will.
How long would that take?
So the Office of the Public Defender is ready. This for us, it is not a projection or an aspiration. The procurement and state government follows a particular path. So once the committee were to approve the funding, we could immediately move into that process. We would not be starting from scratch. We, I believe, have been in the pilot for some period of time. We've evaluated vendors, and we have tested it operationally. It would just be about expanding it from a few attorneys to having it being able to service all 625 of our lawyers.
So, and just to another follow-up question to that. Is the different system needed for each jurisdiction that OPD has an office in?
So essentially, the systems match the various law enforcement systems throughout the state. And we have approximately how many law enforcement?
170.
There's approximately 170 different law enforcement entities, and there is no uniform system that is used throughout all law enforcement throughout the state. So as a state entity, we have to be compatible to whatever each individual law enforcement uses. So that's the additional challenge that we face.
Gotcha. And so I understand you'd mentioned in testimony an additional $2.2 million annually.
Yes, so that would bring us up to allowing all the attorneys to have access. Currently, we only have 81 licenses.
Gotcha. I don't have any other questions, but I'll just say this, Madam Public Defender, to you and your team, I'm certainly appreciative of the work that you all are doing, the role that you all play in our criminal legal system to make sure that low-income indigent folks, regardless of what they are charged with, that they have the constitutional right to representation and capable, competent representation at that. Recognizing that Office of Public Defenders across this country, Maryland included, have seen, whether it's a decline in funding or funding that's not comparable to that of prosecutor's office. So, salute to you for, doing the work that you all are charged to do with the limited resources that you all have. And definitely look forward to working with you to make sure that, OPD has the resources that it needs, but also the attorneys, because that was another thing that you brought up in your testimony. Not just the attorneys, but again, like the salary differences that creates the revolving door within the OPD, right? So thank you all so much. I will certainly be following up, and I just want to make sure, are there any other questions from the subcommittee? Vice Chair Ivey.
Thank you, Mr.
On behalf
Chair.
of all 1,100 employees of OPD, I say thank you.
Yeah, and before you all go, I wanted to echo the sentiments of the chair, and I wanted to thank you as a former theater kid for using the props that you brought today. Appreciate it.
Thank you again.
All right, yes, who knew it was show and tell? So I have 4 people who are signed up to testify on the Office of the Public Defender's budget. I want to make sure, is there a Jennifer Curran and a James Dill here? All right. Is there a Steve Musselman here? All right. Is there a Thomas McCurdy here? Feel free to come on up, Thomas. And whosoever is at a mic first can begin. As a reminder, non-agency representatives are allotted 2 minutes for testimony. Thank you.
Chairman, members of the subcommittee, good afternoon. My name is Jennifer Curran, and I'm the Chief Operating Officer of the OPD. As COO, I work to improve operating procedures and promote efficiency. Information technology and facilities reports directly to me. I was also an attorney here for 23 years, so I know the daily work of our lawyers in every division. We are in survivor mode. The software gap growing between the prosecution and the defense is approaching constitutional dimensions. In this world of data, we're wielding stone clubs in the face of laser guns. There are 24 states' attorney's office and 170 police offices across the state. Each have their own cutting-edge software to handle the enormous amounts of footage that come from body cameras, surveillance videos, ring cameras, and phones. But our state's public defender's office has not been funded to keep pace. The counties are coming at us with 19 different software platforms from which our lawyers receive discovery. We scramble to find ways to upload, store, and manage this vast amount of footage, and that is just the retrieval of data. The bigger time loss is the reviewing of the footage. Without the ability to transcribe it, search for key terms so we can jump to the important moments. We calculated the potential savings in labor value over 10 years on time spent reviewing evidence without software at $101 to $108 million. Not to mention the morale and retention issues caused by hours upon hours of watching these videos. We have done our due diligence and tested software options with pilot projects from the Justice Text, Reduct, and Axon platforms across the state and have seen amazing results. Minutes rather than hours are spent searching footage, and it preserves confidentiality. The increasing time spent with data inefficiency is compounding the burden of our extreme staffing shortage. And I'm here to ask you to help us to get out of survivor mode. Thank you.
Good afternoon, members of the committee. My name is Jim Dills. I am the District Public Defender in Baltimore County. I appreciate you giving me this opportunity to speak with you today. In 2025, the Office of the Public Defender in Baltimore County handled over 22,500 cases with 52 attorneys. That's an average of 425 cases per attorney. Those numbers are staggering. Between our 3 divisions, we handle misdemeanors, felonies, traffic, appeals, violations of probation, contempt cases, bail reviews, juvenile delinquency cases, juvenile waiver and transfer cases, juvenile detention hearings, and many post-trial hearings. We are constantly looking for efficiencies, whether that's cross-training employees, combining jobs, changing processes. We are constantly looking to make things as lean as we possibly can. However, it doesn't solve the problem. Taking resources away from one area simply creates a hole in another. We simply don't have enough sticks to build the roof. Use discovery as an example. Every day we receive dozens of cases worth of discovery. For each case, the amount of data that we receive can be astronomical. Consider all the reports, the cell phone extractions, the video surveillance, the body-worn camera, the scientific evidence, the medical records, the witness interviews, the police interviews. We are dealing with many gigabytes, if not terabytes worth of data in each and every case. The processing, the storage, and mostly the review of these materials is simply not manageable. The Office of the Public Defender is a first-line responder to some of the most pressing issues in society, as issues of homelessness, mental health issues, drug addiction, immigration concerns are so intricately wound into the criminal charges that people that we are served to, that we are helping people with. It is not only our constitutional mandate, but it's our moral responsibility to help people who are facing these challenges. It is imperative that we be put on an equal footing to other stakeholders in the criminal justice system. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair Azavero, Vice Chair Ivey, members of the committee. My name is Stephen Muslim, and I'm a felony public defender in the Frederick County office. I also work in the Hagerstown office because we're short-staffed in Western Maryland. I'm here today testifying as a proud member of my local ASME chapter in the Maryland Defenders Union. I'm here today, and the union is here today, about 70% strong of the core staff, social workers, and attorneys to support everything Ms. Dartigue said. This is a constitutional crisis. We can't represent your constituents unless we're adequately funded. We can't represent your constituents with a crushing caseload. In the last 20 years, my caseload has probably increased 400%. Besides my caseload, the time needed for each case has grown exponentially. Again, I'm not here for myself. I choose to be a public defender every day. Each one of us does. But I'm here for those that can't be heard. My constituents, or excuse me, my clients can't come before you. They're in jail, they're in prisons. There are people that can't afford to drive to Annapolis. You have the ability to properly fund my office to let us do our job and also to support and honor the U.S. Constitution. Caseloads for the Public Defender's Office are crippling. What Ms. Dartigue is asking for is not unreasonable, it's constitutional. We need 1,000 attorneys to properly represent your constituents, point blank. If we don't have them, we harm our clients or we quit. I started my day today at 8 o'clock in drug court in Frederick County. At 9 o'clock, I had 2 more clients. At 9:30, I started emailing members of my office, can you be here because I need to drive to Annapolis. At 11:05, someone was able to come and cover for me so I could be here for my clients. The existing vacancies in our office, my understanding is 105. 45 are just for attorneys. Again, I'm here for the core staff and social workers as well. Unless we fund proper criminal defense, stable defense can't happen. Stable defense yields stable justice. Ms. Dartigue said it plain and simply. Every dollar you spent saves lives and saves our communities. Also, the panel attorney issue. As a line deputy who's in court every day, all the money you're spending on, not spending on attorneys, court staff, and social workers bleeds into that panel money. We hire panel monies to cover for conflicts, for shortages. It just can't be kept up. If you don't fund us, you're paying on the back end with panel attorneys. And in Frederick and Washington counties, we have clients waiting months to get a panel lawyer because we don't pay properly. When you don't meet the needs of our caseloads and our caseloads growing, people are harmed. Point and blank. It's a moral decision. It's not just a money issue. I urge you each to support Ms. Artigue, what she's asking for. It's necessary. It's a crisis that's happening. Again, stable defense comes from stable justice, adequate pay parity with the Attorney General's office. All those things can solve and start to address the shortages that exist for the indigent in Maryland. Thank you. If you have any questions, I welcome them. Again, it's rare you have someone who's in court every day, so I welcome a lot of the questions, Chair, you were asking. I can give you answers to what we do with cutbacks, what I do with my caseload spiking.
Appreciate that.
So I welcome what you're hitting on is happening every day.
Yep, appreciate that, and thank you for your work. Next, please.
I'm T. Ray McCurdy. I am chairman of the Board of Trustees of the Public Defender System for the state of Maryland. I'm a private attorney. Been on the board for 2.5 decades. I was involved in the hiring of the last 3 public defenders. I have received as much compensation for this job as the OPD received for the assisted mental health unit. Now, the big issue that's brought me here today to talk about is that you guys are really heading into an abyss on the panel attorney issue. The staffing issues, all that they've spoken about, I wholeheartedly agree, but the fact remains that when we are paying panel attorneys in OPD at rates that are less than half what the federal system pays, and less than, and 25% less than what our own agencies pay through legal aid. The raise that OPD is asking for of $5 is not significant enough to change the situation. What's happening is in juvenile courts across the state, there was a really well-written Baltimore Banner article that really sums this up about 2 months ago that kind of brought it to the public's attention. That's happening statewide, where juveniles are sitting, some of them detained because we can't find panel lawyers. We can't find panel lawyers because 40 years ago when I started doing this, and I'd left the state's attorney's office in Baltimore County, I took panel cases and cut my teeth under the getting taught and trained by OPD on the side to learn how to try cases, and tried a couple serious felonies that way and kind of moved away from it, went on my own. That's not happening anymore because at the rates that you have right now, you can't afford as a young lawyer starting out to work for that money. You can't keep the lights on. So what you're getting from panel lawyers are retired attorneys, retired public defenders, former judges. I know people that are doing this now, and they're my age, which is great because I'm still practicing law and it makes me feel good about myself, but that's not good for our future. That's not how this is supposed to go. And we're missing the ball on this. The low rate for the federal justice panel is $175 an hour. We're paying $65. Nobody's coming. Nobody's signing up. We need to change that. You need to raise it. It ought to be $100 an hour. That's the right number. So that means they've had a 25% increase, and they've got to stop rating it to keep the lights on. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you to this panel. Any questions for this witness panel?
I'm happy to do it. I've actually known this.
So thank you also very much, and to the OPD staff that are here, the social workers, the core staff, if you could stand just for a moment to be recognized. We appreciate all the work that you all are doing if you are here. Thank you to the Office of the Public Defender. And with that, we will move on to the next agency. We will bring up at this time the Department of General Services. I see some familiar faces. And we will start with our budget analyst, Ms. Yashodhara Rai. Whenever you're ready, Ms. Rai. And then we'll be followed by Secretary Chaudhry and his team, if they are here. Yes, they're here. Ms. Ride?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, committee members. I am Yashodhara Rai, and I'll be presenting the fiscal 27 budget analysis for the Department of General Services, or DGS. The chart on page 1 shows that the total fiscal 27 budget for DGS increases by 4% to $207.2 million. This is after accounting for the fiscal 26 proposed deficiencies and contingent appropriation in fiscal 27. Moving on to Exhibit 1 on page 6, DGS has a goal of completing 80% of large procurements within 90 days. This is represented by the yellow line. However, ongoing data integrity issues related to the Financial Management Information System to eMaryland Marketplace Advantage, EMMA, has resulted in the unavailability of the data since fiscal 21. Another procurement goal of DGS is to combine procurements into one larger procurement. Despite this goal, the new procurements have increased by 14.4% from fiscal 24 to fiscal 25, and these are shown in the red bars. The number of statewide contracts have increased by 56.7% in fiscal 25, but this is still lower than the fiscal 22 level. We request DGS to comment on the increased level of new procurements. Exhibit 2 on page 7 shows that minority and women-owned business enterprise, MBE, participation in the department's total procurement spending was at 25.2% in fiscal 25. This is the highest between fiscal 2019 and 2025. However, this still falls short of attaining the statewide goal of 29% MBE participation, and we request DGS to comment on its outreach activities and plans to reach the targeted 29% goal. Beginning at the bottom of page 7, we discuss the energy consumption by state agencies. This data is accessible through a public dashboard on DGS's website. Only 61% of the total statewide facilities have complete data on this database, and we request DGS to comment on the timeline for the complete transition of the entire state agencies onto the database. Exhibits 3 and 4 on pages 8 and 9 show similar data with just a slight difference in the reporting period for Exhibit 4. The statewide facilities' annual energy cost was $272.8 million in fiscal 25 and is $116 million as of January 2026. Exhibit 4 shows the same data, which is split by commodity. Exhibit 5 on page 10 shows that utilization of energy performance contracts, EPCs, have remained constant at 19 in both fiscal 24 and 25. And although Chapter 247 of 2022 extended the maximum EPC lease term from 15 to 30 years, DGS advises that the department does not expect many projects to have a 30-year lease. This is due to the length of EPC maturity being dependent on the useful life of the improvements. We request DGS to comment on its efforts to increase use of EPCs. DGS also submitted a status report on EPCs per the requirement of 2025 JCR. The report noted 20 projects are currently in verification stage, with the most recent EPC starting construction phase in calendar 2018. However, the report did not provide specific contract details. DGS notes that one of the reasons for declining EPCs is that many EPCs that were launched were during the 2010 era and are now ending, but this also provides an opportunity for newer EPCs to be developed. Some barriers to higher EPC implementation noted were staffing, lower returns, restricted access to excess savings, and DGS recommended promoting benefits of EPCs, allowing an agency or EPC to reinvest savings, a mixed funding model to integrate planned capital with energy savings as some of the options to increase EPC implementation. Also, in its fiscal 24 annual report, DGS reported developing a decarbonization plan for the statewide facilities that it oversees. Since then, a policy has been issued and contractual services are level funded at $1.2 million each in fiscal 26 and 27. We request DGS to provide an update on the work related to the decarbonization planning and estimated completion timeline. Beginning at the bottom of page 11, we highlight the fiscal 26 proposed deficiency appropriations for a total of $9 million in general funds. This includes a total of $6.1 million for facility maintenance and repairs, which includes $5 million to fund critical maintenance and repairs across 23 facilities and $1.1 million to fund emergency facility repairs. Of the $5 million in critical maintenance and repairs, $1.3 million is for facility maintenance at 1100 North Utah Street in Baltimore City, and $1.1 million for the William Donald Schaefer building renovations. Because these expenditures are eligible to be funded by the Facilities Renewal Fund, which is in the capital budget, DLS recommends reducing the $5 million proposed deficiency by a total of $2.4 million for the two projects, and instead fund these through the Facilities Renewal Fund. Other proposed deficiency appropriations include $2.3 million for personnel expenses, about $385,000 for security upgrades, $307,000 to add 7 new Maryland Capitol Police positions, $100,000 for new grant management system annual maintenance fee, and a negative deficiency of $77,000 that transfers one position from DGS to the governor's office. Exhibit 6 on page 13 shows the fiscal 27 allowance distributed across 8 units, with facilities-related units accounting for 80% of the budget. The Office of External Affairs, which accounts for 1% of the total fiscal 27 allowance, is a newly established division that serves as the department's legislative liaison and manages all DGS communications. Exhibit 7 on pages 14 and 15 shows the proposed budget change of $7.9 million in fiscal 27. This is partially offset by $2.6 million in the use of Dedicated Purpose Account, DPA, funding for State Center Relocation Project, and a reduction in reimbursable fund for MIT project for about $7.6 million. As mentioned earlier, there's a $20 million contingent appropriation related to a provision in the Budget Reconciliation and Financing Act of 2026. This provision authorizes the governor to use compliance fees that are deposited into the Strategic Energy Investment Fund, SEIF, for grants and loans to support creation of new Tier 1 renewable energy sources for fiscal 27 through 31. DGS states that this fund will be used to subsidize costs to install solar installations at state-owned facilities and use energy savings to implement EPCs. We request DGS to brief on the selection criteria for the facilities, estimated timeline, and estimated annual energy savings. DLS recommends adopting committee narrative for a remote report with similar detail. Personnel data appears on pages 16 and 17. 5 positions were abolished due to the voluntary separation program approved by the Board of Public Works in October 2025. The fiscal 27 allowance includes an increase of 17 regular positions and reduces contractual full-time equivalents by 20 positions. Of these 17 new positions, 15 are contractual conversions, and the remaining 2 new positions are DGS Procurement Office apprentices. DGS reported 59 vacant positions as of December 31st, 2025. This excludes the 2 new positions that were added in fiscal 27. Of these 59 vacant positions, 52 positions have been vacant for less than a year, and 7 positions have been vacant for more than a year. As of December 2024, DGS had 80.5 vacant positions, and a committee narrative in 2025 JCR required DGS to submit a status report on these vacant positions. As of the report submission, DGS reported only 5 positions remaining vacant. DGS reported conducting 6 recruitment projects that resulted in filling most of the vacant positions. We request DGS to comment on the status of the 5 remaining positions that were still vacant. Likewise, Exhibit 8 on page 17 shows the vacancy trends from January 2017 to January 2026. Moving to Exhibit 9 on page 19, of the 12 agencies that were occupying the State Center complex, 7 agencies have relocated, with 1 agency scheduled to complete relocation in March of this year. All the remaining agencies are scheduled to complete relocation by the first quarter of calendar 2027. Exhibit 10 on page 21 shows that of the $60 million in the DPA set aside to support state center relocation costs, $41.2 million have been spent. No additional cost for the Maryland Department of Health is anticipated as the agency's operating lease is now converted into a capital lease. DGS should comment on the revised estimated remaining costs for the completion of the state center relocation project, and also discuss if the remaining balance in the DPA will cover the estimated balance of the total relocation cost. DLS recommends a committee narrative requesting biannual reports of the state center relocation project. Page 22 highlights some of the audit findings reported by the Office of Legislative Audits, OLA, that was released on July 7th, 2025. These audit findings highlighted deficiencies in DGS's due diligence and transparency when evaluating whether relocating the agencies from the state center complex into a state-owned facility or a privately leased facility was in the state's best interest. This led to the state entering into lease agreements totaling about $411 million. The audit also reported that DGS failed to provide complete information on leases to the Board of Public Works, and also reported inconsistencies in DGS's evaluation of lease proposals in compliance with the regulatory requirements. DLS recommends restricting funds pending submission of a report on assessment of the state's asset maximization strategies. Exhibit 11 on page 24 shows that the overall cost of the backlogs reduced from $23.6 million to $23.2 million. The fiscal 27 includes $10 million in general funds to support the critical maintenance program, which is consistent with recent annual funding levels. There is currently a total of 246 projects in critical maintenance backlog. DGS evaluates and prioritizes projects in 5 categories, with 1 being the highest. While there are no highest priority projects in fiscal 27, priority 4 projects that require restoring their original design effectiveness have increased by 41.7%. DLS recommends adopting a committee narrative for the submission of a report on the critical maintenance backlog projects. Submittable grant management system is discussed on pages 24 and 25. DGS launched a new centralized grants management system in October 2024. Language in the 2025 budget bill restricted $150,000 in general funds pending submission of a report on the implementation of the new grants management system. DGS submitted its report in December 2025 and noted that the implementation of the new system has reduced grant intake review time from over 6 months to under 30 days. There are about 2,200 grantee accounts and about 5,400 active grants that spans from fiscal 2019 to 2026. 6 regular and 5 contractual positions are operating the new system, and DLS determined the report to be in compliance with the language and recommends $150,000 in withheld general funds to be released. The 4th issue on pages 25 and 26 highlights DGS procurement modernization efforts. The executive order signed in December 2024 and Chapter 601 of 2025 streamlined and centralized procurement processes with some notable provisions like expanding contract threshold for the Small Business Reserve Program, providing more flexibility to adjust MBE and veterans-owned small business enterprise participation goals, faster payment timelines from 30 days to 15 days after invoice approval. As part of 2025 JCR submission, DGS noted that certain provisions like expansion of the SBR program and MBE and VSBE reporting forms were updated, while other provisions like faster payment, inclusion of registered apprenticeship and internship programs were ongoing. The OLA conducted a fiscal compliance audit of the Office of State Procurement for the period November 1st, 2021 through January 31st, 2025. The audit findings highlighted inefficient management of the original EMMA project that resulted in termination of the contract and state paying 85% of the contract amount, which was not recovered from the vendor. This resulted in a new contract for EMMA with KPMG. There were instances where state procurement regulations were not followed that were highlighted in the audit report as well. We request DGS to comment on projected timeline to complete implementation of the ongoing modernization processes and how these audit findings will be addressed through these process. Pages 27 to 31 are DLS recommendations. Recommendations 1 and 2 are standard budget bill language that restricts fund pending status of corrective actions related to the most recent audit findings. Recommendation 3 adds specificity to the budget bill contingent language to align more closely with the BORFA provision. Recommendation 4 restricts fund pending submission of a report on maximization strategies for state assets. Recommendations 5 to 7 are committee narrative requesting various reports. Recommendation 8 reduces fiscal 26 deficiency appropriation by $2.4 million for 2 critical maintenance projects. Pages 32 to 42 are appendices. This is the end of my presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Ms. Rai, for that analysis. Turning to the committee now, any questions for the DLS analysts? Seeing none, welcome Secretary Chaudhry and your team.
Good afternoon. Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair, Mr. Vice Chairman. Thank you for having us here today. For the record, my name is Lateef Chaudhry, Secretary of the Maryland Department of General Services. To my right here is Joe Sedtal, Deputy Secretary, and to my left here is Willie Tinchow, our Chief Financial Officer. I want to, first of all, thank the committee for the support, current and ongoing support of the Department of General Services and all the great work that we do. I also wanted to take a quick moment to thank our DLS analyst, Yasha Rai, for her commitment to really taking the time to understand our mission while providing a really strong overview of our agency in her analysis. Throughout the last year, DGS has remained steadfast in its mission to support as a support agency for our partners and advancing their initiatives. Our office of nearly 800 employees are dedicated and committed to delivering vital services that support all 3 branches of state government and impact every corner of our great state. In the last year, just a few highlights of it, we've completed the State House exterior renovation and grounds renovation, including the reopening of the old Treasury building, the oldest surviving public building in the state of Maryland, which we just had a ribbon cutting earlier this week. We played a critical role in Governor Moore's modernization initiative, a government modernization initiative, resulting in millions of dollars in long-term savings for Maryland taxpayers. We also made history with the passage of the Procurement Reform Act of 2025 to reform procurement. We also graduated our first ever Maryland Capitol Police recruiting class of police cadets in the history of our law enforcement agency. And we also earned national recognition for procuring tens of thousands of green certified products for our great state. We've also installed over 100 new EV charging stations statewide and completed the construction of a new state-of-the-art Mabel Hubbard District Courthouse in Baltimore City. We've also completed 189 projects valued at $128 million and managed over 550 active projects valued at over $3 billion. In the DLS analysis, there were 8 operating budget recommended actions. DGS concurs with all recommendations except for one, and that recommendation is to reduce the fiscal year 2026 deficiency appropriation for critical maintenance projects by $2.4 million to fund and then to fund these projects through the facility renewal fund. DGS respectfully disagrees, and the only reason why we disagree is the facility renewal funds are bond funds, and those bond funds require a 15-year lifespan for the project. And the 2 projects that would be funded under that appropriation at $2.4 million would not meet that requirement. They are for 2 different facilities that are actually, we're going to divest of those facilities for the next couple of years. So they wouldn't meet that requirement. We've already sort of addressed that issue with, or started to talk through that issue with our DLS analysts, and happy to explore options for funding associated with that. In the interest of time, you have our written testimony before you here today. There are 9 elements that the DLS analysts recommended that we comment on. You have our written responses before you today. I'm happy to go through each one of them or maybe hit the highlights. I'll defer to you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, if you could just touch on the highlights.
Sure.
We do have the benefit of your written responses,
Sure.
So yes.
Absolutely, happy to do so, sir. So the first one indicated that DGS should comment on the reason for increased new procurements and competitive service procurements. And here, I would say that Maryland's decentralized procurement system that we currently have is really defined by agency-specific needs. It's also defined by funding and legal requirements. So what that means is there's going to be natural fluctuations in our procurements that happen each year. Yes, absolutely, we are trying to consolidate and be strategic with our procurements and do some statewide procurements, but that doesn't necessarily mean that we're not going to do a varying number of procurements throughout the year. And it also hails back to the fact that we don't know which procurements are going to be ending each year, which ones are going to be renewed based on agency needs. So it's really going to fluctuate each year based on agency needs, based on determinations, based on other legal requirements, new laws, new regulations, new other things that need to be met, other federal requirements that may require the state to do some different initiatives. So all those taken into account have an impact on the number of procurements and type of procurements that we do each year. The second discussion point was DGS should brief the committees on its outreach activities and plans to reach a target of 29% MBE participation. I am very happy to report that DGS achieved a goal of 25.2% MBE participation. While that does not meet the goal of 29%, we are striving diligently to get there. This is the highest MBE percentage goal that we've had since 2015. So in 10 years, this is the highest amount we've had. We're very happy about that, but obviously not enough. We're doing more to do that. So we're doing several different things here, and I wanted to highlight just a few of those here. One is doing enhanced procurement review, really to take a look at each procurement, each solicitation that's being developed, and do a hard look to make sure that the minimal amount or no procurements, would be my goal, but we can't obviously get there. There's always going to be some procurements that will have no MB participation, there's no subcontracting, or it's very specific work, or it's a sole source requirement. Software licensing and others is a good example of that. So reviewing that to try and limit the number of procurements that don't have any MBE goals, that's one main goal. The other one is to do other enhanced industry engagement. And what I mean by that is to really engage them early in the procurement cycle. And that means gauging their interest, reaching out to them to see if they'd be interested. The example I always give is a concrete vendor in Central Maryland won't go to Cumberland for a $50,000 contract, but I'll go there for a $2 million contract, right? And it's engaging with the vendor community to make them aware of procurements that they're coming down the road, and let them provide feedback of what they would or would not be able to participate on as an MBE, as an example. So we're also looking at expanded, in that same vein, expanded use of RFIs, a request for information in that same vein, to say, let's test the market. We're going to solicit this particular good and service. What types of MBEs would be out there that would be able to participate? In addition to that, targeted outreach, targeting very specific types of MBEs, may be very specific. Some of them are very narrowly focused, or may have broader scope. And then continuously coordinating with our small business partners to make sure they're engaged and participating as part of the process. The next thing we were asked to comment on is the status of pending DGS utility accounts that were yet to be reassigned, and the timeline to complete that transition. While DGS has consolidated all of our accounts payable when it comes to utilities under the Utility Bill Centralization Pilot Program, we are working diligently with other agencies. Challenge there, obviously, there's over 100 agency accounts payable operations, so we're working through that. We're estimating probably the next year or two we'll have, we'll try to get everyone on board to be going through that process. I think as we get more agencies under our belt, that'll become more of a easier to get buy-in. The fourth thing was to discuss the reason why for low EPC utilization, that's energy performance contracting utilization, and the department's efforts to increase that. So we're doing several things there, and I'm a big fan of energy performance contracts because it's a great way for the state to implement energy saving initiatives at our facilities, including maintenance and repair costs with no out-of-pocket expense. The energy savings would fund the cost, reimburse us for the cost associated with those. So I'm excited to announce that we're holding a pre-proposal conference now for a new APC, which is great news. And we've got an educational event scheduled in March to be able to get more outreach to the agencies, to get more engagement. Part of the reason, Mr. Chairman, that we are not doing as many EPCs is actually a good news story, and that is we are already doing many energy saving measures within our facilities. What I mean by that is Climate Solutions Now Act obviously has been implemented, and we're implementing that as our agency. So as our HVAC systems, you reach end of useful life. We are transitioning those to non-fossil fuel, fully electrified HVAC systems. We're also doing LED lighting projects, et cetera. So the fact that we are being proactive in our upgrades of our facilities can sometimes limit the number of EPCs that we can do. And the reason is EPCs typically are more holistic approaches, and they tend to require larger investments because you have to pay that back over a lengthy period of time. So the good news is we're doing a lot of energy conservation things. The bad news is we're not able to do as many EPCs, but we're threading that needle and navigating that carefully to be able to get as many as we can through that. So obviously paying very close attention to all our existing facilities. We're coordinating very closely as well with MEA, get some additional funds there to supplement these funds to be able to help fund the costs associated with an EPC. The fifth thing we were asked to provide comments on was an update on the progress of the work related to decarbonization planning with a date of an estimated timeline for completion of our plan. I'm very happy to report that we're currently reviewing the draft plan right now, and we're hoping to have it completed by the end of February. And the overall portfolio covered under this particular decarbonization plan includes 17.5 million gross square feet and over 800 buildings. So very excited about that and be able to, once we have that plan finalized, then we'll talk about the next steps about implementation as well. The next thing, number 6, was going to be to brief the committees concerning selection criteria for which facilities will be included in initiatives for completing projects for timelines for initiating and completing projects and estimated annual energy savings to be achieved that could be used to support EPC projects, and then also adopting committee narrative requesting to submit a report, identify funds through this initiative, which we're happy to do. In association with this, DG is partnering with MEA in evaluating 29 state-owned facilities in targeted census tracts for potential solar installation, as an example, and in order to implement comprehensive energy efficiency upgrades. And we're going to be really prioritizing sites with the oldest equipment, the poorest building envelopes, which can cause seepage of air and other issues, humidity issues, and the highest greenhouse gas emissions. So we're going to narrow that scope down from 29 to hopefully get it down to a list of 4 or 5 buildings for solar installations that we can implement. These projects can utilize an EPC model, and they can leverage, we're looking at about a 6-year return on investment. So we expect to finalize the list of candidate facilities by the end of 2026 and have construction started in normal due process associated with that. And then the next one there was going to be status of 5 positions. I think you've got the listing there of the 5, so we can sort of, we're actively recruiting in that as well. And just to, the last 2, I think, just to hit on our DPA account, we've got a listing there of all our DPA and the funding associated with that. And we don't need any additional funds, which is great news. And finally, hit the highlights of our EMA implementation, and it's moving well going forward. Happy to report, and we're looking at a completion at the end of next year.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Secretary Chaudhry. Certainly appreciated. At this time, I will entertain any questions. Committee questions. Vice Chair Ivey.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Mr. Secretary, for the work that you do. You got a wonderful team with you. I just want to start up front with that. I also wanted to thank you for the 25% participation rate that you achieved for the MBE program. And I don't want to just underline that and move on because we've been discussing this for years here in Annapolis, how we can increase that participation rate. And although we're not at the 29% goal yet, we're certainly moving in the right direction. And I just want to give you your flowers right now in front of everyone. Thank you for the work that you're doing.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman. It's a lot of hard work. It is very much a team effort. The team works very hard, and lots of outreach and engagement, and we're hoping to meet that goal very soon.
Yeah. I was just buttering you up, though.
Okay. I knew something was coming, Mr. Vice Chair. I knew something was coming.
No, but this is also, we want to help advocate on your behalf as well. Sure. When we see the audit findings here, it's around 23 findings that they had here. If you could just speak to some of the guardrails that we should be putting in place to help you move forward, I think that would be really helpful for us. Thank you.
No, thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Great question. So I will tell you, DGS has never had a compliance unit. They've never had a compliance officer ever in the history of the agency. At the beginning of this year, hired the agency's first chief compliance officer. And that, while it's great, by the time we were able to hire that individual, we were already sort of under the audit period. So I think it's a great opportunity here. I really appreciate audits as an opportunity, as an outside look at the agency. And I will tell you, Mr. Vice Chair, that not only are we having that chief compliance or do a deep dive in all the operations and prior audits that we have to prevent future repeat findings, but also we're going to expand that unit as well to have additional capacity and capability to not just be reactive, but also be proactive as well to make sure we're doing that. So I really appreciate that. And you know, the legislature being involved and engaged as part of this process. I will tell you, obviously, there's always going to be resource requests and other things associated with that when it comes to findings. You know, we're happy to work with the legislature. We're happy to work with DLS and others to make sure we are in OLA, make sure that we are working sort of hand in hand, collaboratively together. And I think that with a new compliance unit, we'll have the safeguards and sort of measures in place to make sure that we've got all our ducks in a row as we move forward associated with this. And I want us to be very, very proactive as we do this and methodical as we go through all of our, and I want to just let you know as well, Mr. Vice Chair, a lot of the findings have already been identified. We've already addressed a lot of those, and we've already put in measures in place to address those going forward as well. Some of these we even addressed before the audit was complete. So a lot of these we're being very proactive and very engaged as part of this process.
All right.
Just
Follow up?
yeah,
Sure.
again, thank you for the work that you've been doing. The 25% participation rate is something that we should be proud of.
Sure.
And the way that we got to this point today, I think we should really publicize that, and so that the other states across the country can look at what we did here in Maryland to get where we are. So if we could also have some more of that information, just so we can publicize it more, I think it'd be helpful for us and for other states as well. Thank you.
No, thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. And I'll tell you, my counterparts in other states, they're very excited about the procurement reform that we're doing and the MBE goaling that we're doing, and they're reaching out to learn more. So we're happy to share that information with you, sir.
Any other questions from the committee? All right, seeing none, Secretary Chaudhry, thank you for the work that you're doing. I'll just echo the good work on the MBE participation increase. I'll hold off on the congratulations till we get to 29%. But it certainly noted here that this is the highest level, right? 25%. So kudos to you and your team. Appreciate all the work that you all are doing, and we've certainly had discussion offline about your agency and the role that you're playing in the women's pre-release facility. So appreciate all the answers and look forward to working with you on that. So seeing no further questions from the committee, thank you, Mr. Secretary, and to your team. And I want to give just a quick shout out to Reverend Lawrence, who is here in the audience. Congratulations, sir, on your appointment, and look forward to working with you as well. Thank you all. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
So we have 3 people signed up, 3 witnesses signed up to testify on DGS's budget. I have a Denise Gilmore, a Bilal Alston, and an Alan Thomas. If you're here, wonderful. And whosoever is at the table in front of a mic first can begin. And just as a reminder, 2 minutes for witnesses. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me? Hear me? Okay. Hello, everyone. Thank you for your time. And I'll start right now. My name is Bilal Austin. I'm a building security officer with the Department of General Services and Vice President of ASME Local 1535. I stand before you today with urgency to ask for your support in increasing wages and creating meaningful advancement opportunities for building security officers. I began my career in November 2021. My first paycheck for 80 hours of work was $852. Since then, our compensation has not kept pace with the rising cost of living. Groceries, gas, rent, and utilities continue to increase, yet many of us must work secondary jobs or 40 to 80 hours of overtime each pay period just to provide for our families. That is not sustainable, and it is not fair for those who are entrusted with protecting Maryland public buildings. We are proud to serve the state of Maryland. Every day we report to the state facilities committed to keeping our colleagues, visitors, and the public safe. As uniformed officers, we stand on the front lines. We show up consistently, we remain professional, and we take pride in ensuring that government buildings remain secure and in stable environments for everyone who works inside of them. But beyond the uniform, we are someone's son or daughter, someone's grandson or granddaughter, someone's brother, sister, mother, father, aunt, uncle, or caregiver, just like each of you. Our families depend on us, just like each of you. We want the same priority for our families that you fight to provide for yours. Opportunity, stability, and the ability to build a future through honest work. When you invest in building security officers, you are investing in families across Maryland. You are investing in stability, retention, and public safety. We are not asking for any type of special treatment. We are asking to be recognized, respected, and valued. I respectfully urge you to act. Thank you for your time, services, and leadership. God bless you all.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Chair, Mr. Vice Chair, committee members, my name is Dale Thomas. I'm a member of the American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees, Local 1803. I'm a state of Maryland employee, and I've worked in facilities maintenance for nearly 10 years. I've worked, our crew helps maintain the State House complex, the House, the Senate, the Governor's Mansion, and supporting buildings downtown. The issue is simple. We're losing skilled people, and it's hurting the state's ability to maintain its own buildings. People aren't leaving because they don't care. They're leaving because they can't afford to stay. And when they leave, we lose something that can't be replaced quickly, the hands-on knowledge of each building's systems and quirks. When staffing drops, the state leans harder on private contractors. That means more waiting, more markup, and less continuity. Our buildings don't get simpler when you change the badge on the shirt. They get harder to maintain when the experience walks out the door. What would help is straightforward. Fund positions so we can keep the work in-house. Support fair compensation, a 2% cost of living increase and a step increase so we can retain trained employees and stop the revolving door. My ask today is simple. Please fund these positions and support pay that can keep skilled Maryland employees on the job so Maryland can maintain Maryland's buildings without unnecessary middlemen. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Next, please.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, Mr. Vice Chair, and members of the committee. My name is Denise Gilmore, and I'm the Legislative and Political Director for AFSCME Council 3. I am going to be relatively brief. We support Secretary Chaudhry and his efforts on consolidating procurements. We think there are efficiencies there. Look, our members are on the ground, frontline staff, our folks see it right away when some of these procurements, go awry, are inefficient. We spent the interim really digging into some of these contracts. We took a 5-year kind of look at them. I want to just highlight, 3 kind of key findings on them. We do think there are opportunities for cost savings here. We've shared them with the administration and certainly happy to follow up and share them with the subcommittee as well. But this is work that we hope to partner with the administration on to look at some cost savings, which is certainly important in times of budget deficits. One is contractual spending for management consulting grew at a faster rate overall than just contractual spending. In 5 years, between fiscal years 2020 and 2025, management consulting contract spending totaled nearly $600 million. We think that's a place that we can look to potentially save money. During that same time period, spending on information services, so IT services on consulting, totaled almost $1.25 billion. We think, and that in total was about 37 million more than budgeted. We think that's a place that we can potentially save money. And then going directly to security services, that oftentimes is over budgeted as well. That's a place that we think we can save money. So we look to the legislator's support to help us on some of these ideas. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Any questions for this panel of witnesses? Seeing none, I just wanted to take a moment to thank you all for the work that you all do on behalf of our state. You don't hear it enough. You hear it from me. Thank you. It is certainly appreciated. We are in a bit of a budget shortfall, but we want to make sure that our employees, the folks that ensure our state keeps running, that we're not leaving them behind. So appreciate your testimony. Thank you for sharing it, and we'll certainly be working with you all, okay? Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. God bless you.
So the next agency that we have is the Executive Department, Boards, Commissions, and Offices. Our budget analyst, Ms. Natalie Andrade, and followed by the agency representative. I have a Wes Moore here, but I don't. Wes Moore is here? Is Wes Moore here? You've changed a lot, Governor Moore. Ms. Andrade, anytime you're ready.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon. I am Natalie Andrade, and I'm here with the Department of Legislative Services to present the fiscal 27 allowance for the boards, commissions, and offices unit of the Executive Department. On page 1 of the analysis, you can see that the fiscal 27 allowance totals $10.8 million, representing a decrease of $1.2 million or 9.9% compared to the fiscal 26 working appropriation. Turning to page 2, the analysis discusses the GOSBA transfer to the new Department of Social and Economic Mobility. Chapter 605 of 2025 transferred the Governor's Office of Small Minority and Women Business Affairs to the new Department of Social and Economic Mobility, effective October 1st, 2025. As a result, $1.9 million in general funds and 17 positions were transferred out of this unit in fiscal 2026. Page 2 also presents a proposed fiscal 26 personnel deficiencies totaling $280,000 in general funds, and this is related to lower than expected vacancy savings and turnover assumptions within several offices. On page 3, Exhibit 1 provides an overview of agency spending and shows that funding is distributed across 7 programs within the unit. The Governor's Office of Community Initiatives is the largest program, totaling $3.5 million, followed by the State Ethics Commission at $2.2 million, and the State Board of Contract Appeals at $1.7 million. And the remaining funding supports the Public Employee Relations Board, the Maryland State Commission on Criminal Sentencing Policy, SARBI commissions, and the Healthcare Alternative Dispute Resolution Office. Pages 4 and 5 include Exhibit 2, which explains the $1.2 million net decrease from fiscal 26 to fiscal 27. The reduction is primarily driven by $587,000 in general funds associated with the transfer of GOSBA to DOSAM, and $493,000 decrease resulting from the relocation of the Governor's Grant Office to the Office of the Governor. The largest single change is an $819,000 reduction related to reclassifications, reflecting the transfer of 17 positions from GOSBA and 2 positions from the Governor's Grant Office. Additional decreases are associated with cost allocations, one-time grant funding under the Governor's Office of Immigrant Affairs, and other operating expenses. Turning to pages 5 and 6, the personnel section shows that the fiscal 27 allowance authorizes 53 regular positions and 2 contractual FTEs, representing a net decrease of 2 regular positions compared to fiscal 26. This decrease reflects the transfer of the Governor's Grant Office operations to the Office of the Governor. And as of December 31st, 2025, the agency reported 3 vacant positions, though 2 of these were associated to GOSBA positions that were transferred out in fiscal 2026. Consistent with this, the turnover rate assumption decreases from 5.7% in fiscal 26 to 1.55% in fiscal 27. To conclude, on page 7, the Department of Legislative Services recommends concurring with the Governor's allowance. With that, I conclude my presentation. I'm happy to take any questions.
All right. Thank you. Yep. Thank you very much for your analysis. Questions for the analyst, Delegate Kaiser.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think my first question is easy. The next one maybe less so. In terms of the Governor's Office of Community Initiatives, how many different groups are there? How many different initiatives or offices are folded into that?
I will let the agency.
Let them,
yeah,
and then I guess my question, I don't know if it's for you or again for them, how much cost savings in that all of them are co-located, as I understand it, that allows for sharing of office supplies, staff, space, or something else? Is that part of the analysis or?
No, we don't
okay.
have that in the
All right, thank you. Sorry.
All right. Any other questions for the analysts? Seeing none. At this time, I'd like to welcome.
Good afternoon, Chair Acevedo, Vice Chair Ivey. My name is Lawrence Walker. I serve as the Executive Director for the Governor's Office of Community Initiatives. Some people get us confused because of the cut. Here with me today is Mona Vieta. She is the Director for the Governor's Office of Financial Administration. I also want to say thank you to the subcommittee members and thank you for allowing us to provide written testimony on behalf of the boards, commissions, and offices. And each year you give us this opportunity to come before the subcommittee. And so we want to thank you for that as you continue to review the proposed budget. Boards, commissions, and offices are comprised of various budgetary units, and I would like to introduce my colleagues who are joining us here today, and I'm going to ask them to stand as I read their name. Jennifer Algair is the Executive Director for the Maryland State Ethics Commission. And we have Harry Chase, the Executive Director for Maryland State Commissions. Harry Chase, the Executive Director for Healthcare Alternative Dispute Resolution Office.
32nd year.
We have David Soleil, the Executive Director for the Maryland State Commission on Criminal Sentencing Policy. Erica Snipes, the Executive Director for the Public Employees Board Relations Board. Michael Stewart, the member of the Maryland State Board of Contract Appeals. Mari Dorn Lopez, the Deputy Director for the Governor's Office of Immigrant Affairs. And Jeremy Browning, the Director of the Maryland Commission on LGBTQIA+ Affairs. I would also like to thank our designated analyst, Ms. Andreda, for her hard work and acknowledgments of our office efforts towards throughout this analysis. And she has been a pleasure for our office to work with, so thank you very much. And our written testimony is before you on behalf of the boards, commissions, and offices. And we also want to thank DLS for their concurrence with the governor's allowance budget. And we're happy to answer any questions at this time.
All right. Thank you very much, Reverend Walker. Congratulations on your new role.
Thank you.
I think we worked together when you were over at Governor's Office of, what was it, Community Partnership?
I'm still there. That's where I'm
still
sitting
there.
now.
Okay,
right?
Good.
So the new role will start on Wednesday.
The new role starts on Wednesday. Okay, and for the benefit of this committee, can you just update us on the new role and so on?
On Wednesday, I'll be moving over to Secretary Chowdhury's team and serving as the Assistant Secretary for
Assistant Secretary. Gotcha.
For External Affairs.
So we have until Wednesday to direct any related
I'm feeling
questions.
like the Aflac duck right now.
So we have until Wednesday to address any questions to you related to this, and then you're in your new role.
Related to GOCI, yes.
Okay. Well, congratulations, Frat.
Thank you.
Reverend Walker. Much.
Thank you, my brother.
Looking forward to working with you. And we have a question from Delegate Kaiser.
Yes.
I'm going to go back to the questions I missent to the wrong person a few minutes ago. How many groups under Governor's Office of Community Initiatives, and given when you all were brought together physically, I wanted to hear more about that overall cost savings of having, as I understand it, the groups co-located.
Okay, so the commission started, I want to say 2008 with, or it might have been earlier, but the Maryland Commission on Indian Affairs. And that was in a different agency and kind of the history bringing it together into one office. But we have the Maryland Commission on Indian Affairs. We have LGBTQIA plus affairs, which started in 2022? Yes. 2022. And then in 2023, the Maryland Commission on Immigrant Affairs and ethnic commissions, which include Asian, Pacific American, South Asian, Middle East, African, Caribbean, Hispanic and Latin American community affairs, and I think I counted them all, yes. And so having all of those offices work in one office, we're able to use our resources and support staff to work across. And one of the things that I've tried to do at the governor's direction is to make sure that our boards and commissions are working together as opposed to working separately to help reduce costs as we work together, and we do a lot the work out in the community together as well. And you know, we represent the entire community, so it works well when we're established as we are. And I would also just like to add that Special Secretary Maria Martinez will be taking over as the leadership in the office, and she's phenomenal and will keep the work going.
All right, thank you. And Secretary Maria Martinez is no stranger to many of us here in Annapolis, so glad to hear that she'll be assuming that role. Any other questions for Reverend Walker and his team? All right, seeing none, it's good to meet all of the heads of the various offices that fall under the governor's executive departments, offices, commissions, et cetera. Look forward to working with each of you all individually. Reverend Walker, it's always good to see you. Thank you very much. And with that, we'll move on to the next agency, the State Department of Assessment and Taxation. We will begin with our budget analyst, Mr. David Proppert, followed by Bob Yeager, the Director of the State Department of Assessments and Taxation. Whenever you're ready.
The fiscal 2027 budget for the State Department of Assessments and Taxation, or SDAT, decreases by 2.5% to $185.2 million. This decrease is due to the proposed efficiencies in fiscal 2026, totaling a net value of about $15 million, which will be discussed more later. You will also notice that special funds have comprised an increasing share of the agency's total budget each fiscal year shown. This is due to two actions from the BRFA of 2025. First, the local and state cost share for three of SDAT's programs switched from being 50-50 to 90-10. And secondly, up to $11 million in special funds from the Expedited Service Fund were allowed to be used for general operating expenses in fiscal 2026 and 2027. Moving to page 5. Exhibit 1, in blue, the percentage of personal property returns assessed by October 31st has improved each year since fiscal 2021. In orange, the percentage of the local assessable base assessed by October 31st reversed a historical trend in year-over-year declines in fiscal 2025 by improving to 73% from 49% in fiscal 2024. SDAT should comment on the reasons for the improvement in the percentage of local assessable base assessed by October 31st. Continuing to Exhibit 2 on page 6, the residential assessment to sales ratio remained level at 92% in fiscal 2025, and fiscal 2025 saw the largest year-over-year growth in the value of the assessable base in the period shown, increasing by 6.7% to just over $1 trillion. Exhibit 3 on page 7 shows the corresponding increase in property taxes collected by local jurisdictions as property values have risen. From fiscal 2019 to 2025, property tax revenues increased by about 35%, or $3 billion. Exhibit 4 on page 8 shows that the number of eligible homeowners tax credit, or HTC, applicants has decreased each fiscal year except for fiscal 2024, and eligible HTC applicants decreases year over year in fiscal 2025 by 10.7%. Contrary to the HTC, the number of eligible applicants for the renter's tax credit, or RTC, increased by 37.8% year over year in fiscal 2025. SDAT should discuss the factors that led to the increase in eligible RTC applicants in fiscal 2025. Exhibit 5 on page 9 shows HTC utilization, including deficiencies. In 3 out of the last 4 fiscal years, deficiencies have been needed to fund this program at the required level, including a $16.2 million deficiency in fiscal 2025. The agency reported that fiscal 2024 and 2025 contained outstanding payments that were due to delays in receiving documentation from local jurisdictions. The fiscal 2027 allowance includes a $7 million deficiency for fiscal 2026, and SDAT reports this is entirely for Baltimore County credits owed based on applications from fiscal 2023 and 2025. SDAT should comment on how the HTC is forecasted for future years. The agency should also discuss what can be done to improve this process to avoid future payment backlogs. Exhibit 6 on page 10 displays RTC utilization. There was a year-over-year increase of 63%, or $1.7 million in fiscal 2024, despite a reduction in the number of eligible applicants. SDAT reports that this fiscal 2024 increase was due to an accumulation of payments stemming from prior fiscal years that were delayed because local jurisdictions were late to send the required documentation. SDAT should comment on how many RTC applications are in the backlog due to a lack of requisite documentation from local jurisdictions. Moving to Exhibit 7 on page 11, the number of new participants peaked at 85 in fiscal 2021 and has declined each fiscal year since for the enterprise zone tax credit. The number of total participants grew by 27% from fiscal 2019 to 2025, and the amount reimbursed to local governments increased 21% during that time frame. Although the total number of participants steadily increased from fiscal 2020 onward, the payments to local jurisdictions did not increase at the same rate and even decreased from fiscal 2022 to 2023, despite additional participants. This can occur for several reasons. First, the timing cycle of each participant varies due to the fact that the credit diminishes over time. Additionally, the property tax credit is based on the portion of real property improvements made. There can be years when the number of participants increases, but the value of improvements is less than a year with fewer participants. From fiscal 2024 to 25, there is one less participant and reimbursements increased by $800,000. Page 12 lists proposed deficiencies for fiscal 2026 totaling $15.9 million, which are partially offset by a reduction of approximately $733,000. Notable deficiencies include $7 million for the HTC program, $4.2 million for the Enterprise Zone Tax Credit Program, and $3.7 million to refund local jurisdictions for overcharging their portion of the cost share for certain SDAT programs from fiscal 2014 to 2025. Exhibit 8 on page 13 shows the overview of agency spending. The tax credit programs comprise the majority, followed by the property valuation program at 30%. Exhibit 9 on page 14 breaks down the cost for these tax credit programs. The majority is for the HTC, and 1/3 is for the RTC. Exhibit 10 on page 15 shows the changes from the fiscal 2026 working appropriation to the allowance. Major changes include $4 million for salary increases and fringe benefits and $2.9 million for health insurance, which are offset by year-over-year decreases in major IT projects and the various deficiencies described previously. Flipping to page 16, SSTAT had a vacancy rate of 5.62%, or 32 positions as of December 31st, 2025. In October of 2025, the Board of Public Works approved the abolition of 502.7 positions statewide, including 170.7 vacant positions and 332 positions associated with the voluntary separation program. As part of these actions, 7 positions were abolished in SSTAT, including 3 vacant positions and 4 positions as part of the voluntary separation program. Of SSTAT's 32 vacant positions, 2 have been vacant for more than 1 year. The Department of Legislative Services recommends deleting one of these long-term vacant positions. Language in the fiscal 2026 budget bill restricted $25,000 in general funds pending a report on the status of 5 positions that were vacant for more than 1 year as of December 31st, 2024. Of these 5 positions, all were filled as of August 8th, 2025. Upon review, DLS determined the report to be in compliance with the budget language and therefore recommends that the $25,000 in withheld funds be released. And we will process a letter to that effect if no objections are raised by the committee. Moving to Exhibit 11 on page 19, narrative in the 2025 Joint Chairman's Report also requested that SSTAT submit 2 reports on the status of vacancies in its real property valuation program. Salary increases for this program were provided in the fiscal 2025 budget and took effect in July 2024. Vacancies initially dropped from the historical level beginning in August of 2024 and continued to July of 2025 before creeping back up to historical levels in October 2025. Following October, they decreased slightly to below historical levels. Continuing on to page 20, the Office of Legislative Audits, or OLA, investigated a tip of misuse of SSTAT's Corporate Purchasing Card, or CPC program, by one employee and conducted an audit covering the period from May 2019 through August 2024. SSTAT was unable to provide documentation such as itemized receipts to support the cardholder's payments for at least 230 payments totaling approximately $41,400, and 16 payments totaling $1,400 had illegible documentation. Among others, OLA identified other instances of misuse, including the CPC being used for extra days in a rental property for a conference, personal utility and phone bills, and other personal items. SSTAT did identify $300 in questionable purchases from the reported employee and terminated their employment in August of 2024. However, they did not process the termination as a, quote, termination with prejudice, as indicated in its termination letter, which meant that the cardholder was eligible to be rehired by another state agency. Furthermore, the matter was not referred to the Office of the Attorney General, Criminal Division, and the Governor's Chief Counsel as required. The agency also cannot document that it attempted to recover the improper payments identified. OLA recommended that corrective actions be taken, including ensuring terminations are accurately processed and future instances of criminal or unethical conduct are subjected to the proper reporting requirements. Additionally, OLA recommended that SSTAT abide by the Comptroller's regulations for CPC programs and enhance approval oversight of purchases. The agency agreed with the findings and to the corrective measures. Exhibit 12 on page 22 displays the timeline for one of SSTAT's major IT projects known as the Cloud Revenue Integrated System, or CRIS. CRIS basically modernizes the tax credit application and administration process and the Maryland Business Entity System, which is a state database that contains important tax and legal information and documentation for businesses by moving processes online instead of being more paper-based. Language in the fiscal 2026 budget bill restricted $50,000 of general funds pending the submission of 2 reports on the development status of CRIS. Parts 1 through 7, which comprise the RTC, HTC, Homestead Tax Credit, and Homeowner Protection Program, have been successfully developed and deployed. Part 8 is in progress, and Parts 9 and 10 are in the procurement process. Upon review, DLS determined the reports to be in compliance with the budget language and therefore recommends that the $50,000 in withheld funds be released. DLS will process a letter to that effect if no objections are raised by the committees. The primary source of funding for SSTAT's major IT projects is the Expedited Service Fund, which receives deposits from expedited processing fees that businesses can elect to use for various filings. Including the appropriation in the fiscal 2027 allowance, total budgeted funding for IT projects currently exceeds the maximum estimated total cost of the project by $7.1 million, as reported in the IT project appendix that accompanied the fiscal 2027 allowance. SSTAT reports that there have been unspent special funds that were canceled and then reappropriated in later fiscal years, and the reappropriation of the unused special funds caused those funds to be double counted. The agency has stated that the total estimated project cost is $39.6 million, not $47.1 million as listed in the Major Information Technology Appendix. The agency should provide the estimated fiscal 2026 closing balance for the Expedited Service Fund. Additionally, the agency should also work with the Department of Budget Management and the Department of Information Technology to update the IT project appendix submission in future years to account for canceled funds. DLS recommends adding language restricting funds in the fiscal 2027 budget for the purpose of administration until SSTAT submits a report updating the committees on the status of the CRISP project. Lastly, SSTAT's other major IT project is the Maryland Assessment Administration Evaluation System, which will be a computer-assisted mass appraisal system. In fiscal 2025, $1.95 million was appropriated for this project, but none of it was spent, so the funds were canceled. In fiscal 2026, $4.9 million was appropriated, and only $1.95 million, which is the amount from fiscal 2025, is planned to be spent. The agency has previously reported that this project has been delayed due to a technical writer not being hired to draft a request for proposal. SSTAT should discuss whether a technical writer has now been hired and the new timeline for the IT project. And with that, I conclude my presentation and can take any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Proppert, for your wonderful analysis there. Colleagues, are there any questions for our DLS analysts? Seeing none, we'll move over to Mr. Yeager. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair Ivey. Members of the subcommittee, my name is Bob Yeager. I'm honored to serve as Director of the State Department of Assessments and Taxation. I'd like to thank the committee for the opportunity to share what we're doing at SSTAT, discuss the fiscal 27 budget, and to answer your questions. First, I'd like to introduce you to our team. I'm joined today by our State Supervisor of Assessments, Adam Lewis, our Associate Director, Maria Mathias, our Director of Human Resources, Keith Mervin, and our Chief Financial Officer, Aubrey Bescombe, as well as our Government Affairs Director, Josh Greenberg. With my appointment by the Governor Moore last summer, I come to this role with a deep respect for the agency's responsibilities and for the partnership between SSTAT and the General Assembly, especially given SSTAT's central role in property assessments, tax credits, and business services that directly affect Maryland's businesses and residents, as well as its economy and local government revenue. My goal is to lead the transformation of SSTAT into a modern, innovative, and customer-focused agency that leads in service delivery and operational excellence, supports our incredible team of professionals, and exceeds expectations when fulfilling the goals of lawmakers who create the programs that we administer, all while exercising fiscal responsibility. SSTAT is currently undergoing key modernization projects to systems across all agency divisions. We're enhancing community outreach, strengthening partnerships with local governments, industry groups, and advocates, and managing targeted initiatives to improve our services, all while tailoring our strategies to maximize our budget efficiency. Just some of the progress that we made in the last year: we've doubled our outreach to residents and businesses across the tax credits, tax sale ombudsman, and business services divisions to bridge information gaps and assist at-risk residents with plans to ramp this up further in 2026. The department has also worked closely with local governments, advocacy organizations, and other external stakeholders to make targeted customer-focused improvements to our services, including working to make our online resources available to non-English speaking residents and our ongoing efforts to translate forms into more languages. This collaboration, in addition to the feedback we get firsthand from working directly with our customers every day, has been the basis of targeted and successful projects, such as our recently launched vacant lot valuation initiative in Baltimore City. We're also entering phase 2 of our exciting transition of our business filing system away from the Annapolis Data Center to a modern cloud-based platform. This project will enable us to dramatically improve our services to Maryland business owners and entrepreneurs. We've successfully fully implemented new laws, creating an enhanced phone outreach program for homeowners in tax sale and enrolling heirs to deceased property owners into critical tax credit programs and our homeowner protection program. And finally, we've implemented extensive cross-training to reduce processing times in our tax credits and business charter divisions. And there's much more to come this year. With each goal, we strive to minimize costs and optimize existing resources. With that, I'd like to thank our budget analyst, David Proppert, for collaborating with us to provide this year's analysis. We highly value the insights and feedback on how we can improve what we do. The committee has our written responses to the DLS analysis, and now I can go through each of our responses, if that sounds good to you, Mr. Chair.
Colleagues, are there questions for the agency? All right, we'll go with questions first, and then we'll come back.
Okay.
Delegate Kaiser.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Hello. My question, I want to ask about the Homeowners Protection Program. No surprise, Josh.
Right.
Like to ask, if you had another $250,000 there, what would you do with it? How many more people could it serve?
You know, we have sufficient funds right now for the amount of people that are interested in enrolling in the program. What we're trying to do is see how we can make more people aware of the program. So it's really an outreach strategy that we have right now. As you know, we have the phone outreach where we reach out to people who are on the tax sale list, and they've been in that process. But throughout that process, and I think we've talked about this in the past, one of the things that they do is as they screen someone for the HPP program is they check to see if they've applied for prior years of a homeowner's property tax credit. Often they haven't, and they can go back 3 years. So in a lot of instances, someone who may have been a candidate to enroll in the loan program, because we're able to get them those prior year tax credits, it eliminates their debt and they don't have to take out the loan. We still stay in touch with them. We tell them that we don't want to, once we resolve that debt, we want to keep them on track. And so we have regular outreach to make sure that people are aware when those homeowners tax credit applications become available each year. But because of that, the folks who end up in the HPP program are only those who still have a balance of debt that they need to pay off to stay out of tax sale. So the lower enrollment numbers don't reflect the number of people that we're helping every year. So we're helping thousands of homeowners. But the HPP program is an important tool that we have. If they don't have other benefits like prior year tax credits or grants available from other nonprofit organizations, the loan is a great way for us to stabilize their housing situation, pay off their debt, get them on an affordable payment plan, and then work with them to resolve whatever issues. We have an enrollment agreement we provide for each enrollee and help them access legal resources, counseling, other grants and programs. So it's a really effective program, but I think now it's really just going beyond targeting people who are in the tax sale process and just letting people know that this program exists. And what we have done over the past year is we've doubled the number of outreach that we've done. We participate in nonprofit organizations, community group events. But we also, this year, we're really targeting working with lawmakers and their constituent services, reaching out to connect with lawmakers, constituents to let them know about these resources that are available.
Thank you.
Sure.
Delegate Beecham, please.
Yes. Thank you. I was just curious, the revenue increase is up by $3 billion. Is that accurate?
I believe that was from fiscal 2019.
Okay.
Where are you? What page?
Actually,
That was from fiscal 2019 to fiscal 2025.
Okay. I was curious. I was mistaken on that. And now the backlog of cases, you've got 9,300 total?
This is for the...
On page 7? Vacancy and backlog of cases?
So for the renter's tax credit?
Yes.
So there are currently no renter's tax credit applications in the backlog. Previous delays were attributed to late documentation from local jurisdictions, but upon further review, all eligible applications have now been processed.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate Beecham. Wonderful. I do have one question, really, Mr. Yeager, if you could speak to the misuse of CPC program, if you could just speak to that.
Sure. When we learned of the situation, the employee was terminated, and there was not a clear process that was in place for how to manage that termination and the aftermath of that. And then originally, I think there was a less structured system to monitor those very few employees who have a credit card. We've since transformed that system so that it's very standardized. There's we're very careful to monitor those expenditures, and it's something that wouldn't happen again now. We did also correct all of those deficiencies at the time where we changed the former employee's record in the HR system. We notified the proper authorities, and now we have a policy in place to handle that correctly going forward.
Thank you for your response. Sure. Thank you. Yeah, thank you for your response on the record there. This last one, not so much a, to the individuals watching back home, the three of them, who may have read various articles about racial bias in assessment. Could you speak to them about how you all have guidelines in place in the work that you do? Thank you.
Absolutely. So something we're really trying to do this year is to make people aware of the processes that we have sort of across the board so that they feel confident, especially in the assessment process, so that people feel their properties are assessed fairly. And it's very important that people understand what we have in place to avoid racial bias in assessments. I think there was a study that was done a couple of years ago that sort of provided guidelines for how we could counter that and ensure that we're monitoring that. And one of the main recommendations was that we would have smaller assessment areas, very small areas that we would evaluate. They were recommending that you had a different assessment group for each zip code. We have over 900 groups within each zip code, so there are over 30,000 small groups that we assess in. And then we also have assessors. There's not one person who you always have a second person who's going to see the assessment that's done. So that minimizes that. And then also it recommended that we have a diverse pool, ethnically diverse pool of assessors, and we do have that. So we're always looking to make sure that is not a concern, but we understand that it's very important that people feel confident in the fairness of their assessments.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Yeager. Seeing no other questions from members of the committee, that will end the hearing of Department of Assessment and Taxation. We're going to move on to our next agency of the Property Tax Assessment Appeals Board, and we have our wonderful budget analyst, Mr. David Proppert, here to give the overview. Mr. Proppert.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Beginning on page 1, the budget for the Property Tax Assessment Appeals Board, or PTAB, grows by 8.2%, or approximately $100,000 to $1.4 million in the allowance compared to the working appropriation. Exhibit 1 on page 2 breaks down total spending, and personnel costs account for the overwhelming majority. Moving to page 3, Exhibit 2 shows the year-over-year changes in the allowance. There are increases of about $126,000 for salaries and fringe benefits, along with around $42,000 for employee and retiree health insurance costs, which are partially offset by a decrease of $75,000 due to the elimination of 2 contractual positions. Continuing to page 4, as of December 31st, 2025, PTAB had no vacant positions. Exhibit 3 on page 5 shows the number of appeals received, appeals heard or cleared, pending appeals at the end of the year, and the rate of appeals heard or cleared. The first 3 years shown had an average of 10,655 appeals received, and the last 3 years shown had an average of 8,252 appeals received, which is a decrease of 22.6%. Despite the rate of appeals heard or cleared, which is the number of appeals heard or cleared divided by the number of appeals received, reaching 120% in calendar 2024, the number of cases in the backlog only decreased by 2 from calendar 2023 to 2024. This shows that there are a substantial amount of appeals that had a hearing but have yet to be cleared. Moving to Exhibit 4 on page 6, PTAB has a goal to have less than 10% of decisions being appealed to the Maryland Tax Court, and the agency has met this goal in 5 out of the last 9 years shown, with a notable improvement since calendar 2017. While PTAB does not directly control whether a case is appealed to the Maryland Tax Court, local PTABs have a large role in whether appeals get reversed by the tax court, as a reversal may indicate an oversight in fairness or accuracy. Calendar 2016 and 2017 experienced high reversal rates, but the years since have had much lower rates comparatively, with 3 out of the last 5 years being 5%. Continuing down page 6, language in the fiscal 2026 budget bill restricted $100,000 in general funds pending a report on the status of vacancies in Baltimore City's local PTAB and its backlog of cases as of July 1st, 2025. The agency reported that there were 121 cases in the backlog, which was half the number of cases compared to the previous year. The agency reported that the backlog is due to a variety of factors, including the number of cases it receives from the State Department of Assessments and Taxation and availability of appellants. As of July 1st, 2025, there were 2 vacancies in Baltimore City's 6-member PTAB, and the agency has since reported there is only 1 vacancy as of November 24th, 2025. On January 8th, 2026, the restricted funds were released. Exhibit 5 on page 7 lists the backlog of cases and vacancies by local jurisdiction as of December 1st, 2025. The agency reported that the number of cases increases rapidly once notices of new assessments are mailed to property owners, and a wave of notices was mailed in July and August of 2025. Prince George's County and Baltimore City accounted for 71% of outstanding cases as of December 1st, 2025. PTAB should comment on how it assists local PTABs with filling vacancies and clearing the backlog of cases. The Department of Legislative Services recommends adopting committee narrative requesting a report on vacancies and backlog cases. And that concludes my portion of the presentation. Happy to answer any questions.
All right, thank you very much, Ms. Proper, for the analysis. And so at this time, we will turn to the agency. I have Katrina Wiggins, the acting administrator for the Property Tax Assessment Appeals Board. Welcome, Mrs. Wiggins.
Yes.
All right.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Mr. Vice Chair, and the committee for listening to our testimony. I'm Katrina Wiggins, the administrator for Property Tax Assessment Appeals Board, and I have with me 2 operations coordinator. To my left, Ms. McBride, and to my right, Ms. King. And we are happy to give testimony. And I do want to show some appreciation too for our DLS analyst, David Proper. Thank you. PTAB agrees with the observation that the clearance rate did not move from 23 to 24. We continue to work at full capacity despite any vacancies that we have. It only takes 2 board members to have a quorum, so we are able generally to conduct hearings. And that concludes my testimony.
All right, thank you, Mrs. Wiggins. At this time, I'll see if there are any committee questions. Any questions from the committee? Start with Delegate Beecham.
Yes.
Well, we appreciate you.
Backlog of 9,333. I'm new to this committee, so if you could just.
Delegate Beecham, if you could just pull the mic a little closer to you and repeat your question, please.
Yes, I was just curious about the backlog, and I'm new to this committee, so that's why I don't mind asking.
The backlog usually is a 90-day window. Generally, I can tell you for the 2 top counties that get the most appeals, they'll get 200 in a month. But I can remember one particular one got 990 in a month. So you can see where it might take a few months to get caught up if you're used to having 200. Right. So to get 990, and that sticks in my head. They will get caught up because they're going to be 1 month that we only get 100. So somehow in those 90 days, it's always a lag.
All right. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Delegate Beecham. Vice Chair Ivey.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for the work that you do. I really just wanted to echo Delegate Beecham's question. Very selfishly, quite frankly, I'm from Prince George's County. I see us about half of the backlog total.
Yes.
Could you walk me through that?
That's my county too, and I actually served on that board, so I take it personally too.
Sure.
They will get caught up, and they do. I guess it's a period of time when we report it, it might look bad, but eventually it gets caught up. We did have, and it was reported, we had 2 contractors which we sacrificed in the budgets, and it was one of them at Prince George's County. So.
It's 50% of the backlog.
Yes.
So how can we help? Like, is there a timeline for?
No, there are only so many hours in a day, and you can only have a certain amount of appeals heard. It's just, it is, I can't explain that except for if you have 6 hours, they usually schedule 12 hearings. So if you can only have 12 hearings, that's the limit, unless I guess we could maybe double up on the hearings in terms of having them simultaneously. And I'm thinking of some out-of-the-box suggestions that might work. Since we have is up to 6 people on a board, maybe we can double up and have hearings at the same time simultaneously.
Yeah, it's just such a significant number. My fear is that, you know, more cases will come, and as you're getting rid of the current backlog, we're backfilling now and have a larger backlog.
I'm hoping that there will be some programs. I heard a report earlier that will account for some of those people not having to appeal.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Vice Chair Ivey. Delegate Kaiser.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I wanted to ask a question about the same thing, but ask a slightly different version of the question. I understand the point that you're making about the workflow, but of these 9,300 backlog, are there a certain number that are longer than 3 months or longer than 6 months?
Oh, no.
And then my next question would be, are these numbers proportional, similar to prior years?
I think in Prince George's County and Baltimore City, there was some overlap, but I think at this point, maybe half a year, they get caught up and you aren't still dealing with the prior year.
Oh, no, well, my second question was just how similar these numbers are to, you know, as of December 1st of prior years. Is it similar, do you know?
This is my first round, so I'll be able to answer that. I will be addressed. In fact, that was part of the recommendation that I address those things by August the 1st.
And then, thank you, Mr. Chair. And then my last question in that regard, have there been, you know, what have the efforts been to reduce the vacancies in some of these locations or potentially try to get more pins for some of these? I mean, I understand you're saying if you can only do 12 appeals a day at a certain location, well, what if 2 people were doing 12 appeals a day? So have you all been, 2 things, working on the vacancies and trying to figure out how to get more people in general in these jobs?
The appointments office is responsible for filling the vacancies. I don't have any role in that.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Thank you, Delegate Kaiser. I just have a quick comment about, you know, your agency and just a trend that we've been seeing around property assessment, particularly for African American, Latinos, folks whose properties are essentially underassessed. Just curious, there's quite a few bills from our colleagues that have been introduced on this topic. Just curious if that is something that's top of mind for you and what, if any, your agency is doing, I guess, to sort of mitigate that.
Well, I am personally going out to the counties and was in Denton, Maryland, a couple of weeks ago to observe and to monitor what's going on with the boards.
I see. And so is there some sort of, I mean, absent us passing legislation, which, you know, there's more that's been introduced on the topic. I mean, is there sort of like a long-term plan on addressing just what appears to be like the underassessment of whether it's African-American property owners who, you know, whether they're trying to sell their home would be assessed at a significantly less value than if they were to get it somewhere else?
I'm sorry, when they appeal to us, it's usually because they want it reduced. No one comes in and complains about underassessments. That isn't what's brought to us.
I see. Okay, thank you, appreciate that. Any other questions from the committee? All right, seeing none, well, thank you very much, Mrs. Wiggins. Appreciate your testimony and just sticking around to answer questions. We are adjourned.